Of course, with Positive Guru, that's positiveguru.com. Yesterday, I went to a 60th birthday party, and it was for my good friends, Carl. And prior, and he told me in advance that I was going to be asked to speak if I didn't mind. I said, okay, that's fine. About my buddy. And I said, okay, that's great. I'll do that. And and he told me maybe a week prior that I would be talking. And so I thought, "Okay, what things do I talk about with Carl? I know everybody's gonna talk about how he's such a great guy, how he's a wonderful dad, how he's a wonderful husband, how he's super handy, can do anything and will do a great job and just how loyal all these things." I said, well, what am I gonna talk about? And I said to myself, I said, well, there's a couple of things I could talk about. One, about how he saved my life, because he did. You know, I was when I was at Cass Tech one day, I was stepping off the bus and they had these real high curbs, and I my foot got caught between the curb when I was getting off the bus, and I fell partially up under the bus, and he yanked me up and pulled me out because the bus was started moving. But so I said, well, I got to talk about that. I said, what else can I talk about? I said, well, I'm being introduced as his oldest friend, you know, and I had to clarify that I'm not the oldest, but the friend that he's known the longest. But so I'm thinking about this. I said, okay, well, what I say, I got to come up with, I got to have something that the people really, that they want to hear, because I know him on a level and saying things that they may not have seen. And then it came to me. I thought about things I appreciate about Carl. I appreciated him saving me from that bus that time. And I said, man, I'm going to talk about how my boy has been married 4 times. And I said, well, I don't know. Now I forgot to tell you, my buddy is deeply into the church. And so it's gonna be a whole bunch of church folks there. And I said, I don't know how they're gonna look at that. They might not even know he's been married 4 times. So I was like, I don't know how that's gonna go for. But as I walked around thinking about the speech and talking about the speech and walking around the house, the inner sound starts ringing. I get other signs in addition with that from God telling me this is what you're supposed to talk about, Craig. And I got scared. I was like, man, his wife might be hating me after that. I talk about this, but I said, this is what God told me. So kept thinking about it. And then the day came, the day before, or even the day of, and I at the last minute I said, I don't know about this. I said, but God told me to do this. I got the sign. I said, well, let me call a couple of my friends up, see what they think, and see if this is a little bit too much. Anybody I called, I say about after the third person didn't answer, I said, God already answered me. I'm supposed to do this because I couldn't catch 3 people in a row. I said, this is God telling me I need to do this. I said, but what I will do, I'll call Carl and warn him and make sure that it's good. So I called him up and I said, how do you feel about this? And I explained to him why I wanted to talk about it. I've been married 4 times. I'm on my fourth marriage. And he married his fourth wife before I did, years before. And I knew how much guts it takes to go again for a fourth time. How people will look at you. Um, even are you even asking yourself, am I crazy for doing this again? All these things come up. And then I also knew the growth that it takes. And I saw the growth in his selection this time and him. And I had the same experience myself. And when it was time for me to actually consider getting married again, one of the things I thought about, amongst other things, the other sides I got from Carl, is I thought about Carl. I said, Carl is happy this time. He chose the right type of woman for him, the right woman for him this time, and he is happy. And I know that took some growth. And I said, I got to do, I said, you know what? I found the right person for me. I got to do this. And when I mentioned to Carl, he says, "Well, yeah, it's okay." I said, "What about your wife now? Make sure it's all right with her. You think she's gonna be cool with that?" He says, yeah." I said, "Do most people know?" He said, "Well, some people know, some don't." I said, "You sure it's gonna be okay?" He says, "Yeah, it's fine." So I said, "Okay." I called like about an hour before the actual event. So I get there, and they calling certain people up, and then they called up two friends. I was one of two friends, and my friend Sam and myself. And when my turn came, they talked about how we went back to nursery school and so forth. And then I went ahead and I began to talk about Carl. And then I spoke about him being married four times and me being married four times, and just how inspirational it was to see someone who had essentially, for lack of a better way of putting it, failed three times. I mean, you get some lessons in there, you get some growth in there, but from the view of the world, you failed three times, but then you still had the guts to do it again. And I teased about how I call him up sometimes and be like, Carl, now don't be lying to me. The four times the charm, right? Don't get me in here. I find out that it's wrong. And, so it's a running joke. But he's very happy. I'm very happy. So I told the story, amongst other things. People loved it, and to my surprise, people loved the story. And I gave a certain segue in going into it, and they loved it. I was surprised. And afterwards, there's a lot of people that came up. His father, technically his father-in-law, but his father. They are family. And there's his mom, who technically his mom-in-law, but they are family. His adoptive family was there, not his adoptive family, but his biological family that he went back and found was there. All these people, he was thanking these different people in his world, what they did for him and so forth, at the very end. And then at one point he said, when my friend Craig called me up, and he asked me, could he tell the story about me being married four times. He says, and at first I was apprehensive. He says, I've been sort of ashamed about that. And he spoke about basically how he looked at it like maybe he had sinned and done something wrong. Uh, and he says, it's time to come out the shadows. And he talked about how great it was for him and how he had to come out the shadows and look at this as something that was the start of his new life. And it is. I mean, Carl, he's got a great life. When everybody there was teasing about how good he looked, at how his wife's dressing him now, how sharp he is now, and stuff. But he's got a good life. And he was talking about how thankful he was for that, and how he was putting that shame behind. In that moment, I knew that God had the universe had directed me to do that. And I even knew, I didn't know what it's going to be, but I knew. I said, I'm going to see the universe show up while I'm here. And I mean, when I was in there, it was like a revival. It was live. I mean, people, it was singing going on. But it was fun. It was entertaining. It was love throughout the place. It was fantastic. My wife loved it. Thought she was not maybe going to have a good time at first. She loved it. I loved it. But I knew I was going to see some type of miraculous thing, and that was the miracle. God told me to do this thing that was sort of unconventional. God told me to speak in a way. The universe did. When the idea came, the universe said, "Yes, that's the way to do it. That's going to be what you talk about. That's going to be one of the main things you say." And I got the confirmation. and people were walking up to me, shaking my hands and thanking me for the stories. And talking about, what you talked about. We like to talk about some other things. It was funny, but I really enjoyed what you had to say. We were leaving. There was an older lady tell me she had to be about 85 years old. She's doing like this to me. And she said, I love what you had to say. I, I really loved it. Thank you so much. And I said, that was God. My message for today is when the universe tells you what to do and you do it, watch the miracles unfold. The reason why I decided to talk about this is because a buddy of mine called me this morning. He says, I did the right thing. I did what I was supposed to do. We had talked about something he was supposed to do with some people in his world and the way he was supposed to address a certain situation. We also talked about, and I said, man, I feel you should do this. He says, you know what? I know that's what I'm supposed to do. That's the answer from the universe. That's what I'm supposed to do. Now, will I do it? I don't know. And he talked about the way the people, his loved ones, may respond and how they may feel and how they may not understand where he's coming from. He called me today to tell me how he did what we talked about and what he knew the universe told him to do. And he said the reaction, he could not believe how great the reaction was. When you do what the universe tells you to do, watch the miracles unfold. I've learned over years that when you do what the universe tells you to do, God will find ways to let you know, I told you, you dealing with me. It's not just going to work out okay. It's going to be surprising so that you can know that you are to follow God, that you are to follow the universe. I have it happen time and time again, even when it comes down to picking a certain item of clothing. Whenever it's the one I'm skeptical of, but I felt like God said, hey, you got to get that one. And I mean, I got the message. Man, everywhere I go, people would be talking to me about it when I put it on. I may have other things that are equally as nice, but they are reacting the same way because God wants me to know you listen to me about this, listen to me about everything because I'm always right. Craig Kimbrough, Positive Guru. Till next time, peace and blessings. And thank you.